And good morning on October 3rd from the CNET New York Studios. My name is BVG, and it's time for episode 293 of the 359 podcast. In the house today, we got Ben Fox, Rubin, and Scotty Stein.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So
Excited about this.
Today, we're going to be talking all about Google's event tomorrow. We're just basically going to do a preview for the event. It kicks off at 9 a.m. PT. 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can obviously see the live stream on CNET if you like. What are we going to go through today? We'll talk about AR and VR news, the
Pixel 2, obviously. We're going to talk about Google Home.
The Home Mini. There's a lot of stuff that already leaked a couple days ahead of time.
Pixelbook.
So there's like a bunch of things to actually discuss, but even though we know a lot of the products that are being announced, a lot of the details about their features, when they're coming out, haven't really come out yet. So there's a lot of reason to actually see the Google event tomorrow, but at the same time, we'll run you through a lot of the hardware that is expected to be announced tomorrow. Either way, send in your questions and comments. BVG will get to as many as he can at the end of the show. Without further ado, let's get to the podcast.
Back in the chat to take your comments and questions in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. From 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Scott Stein.
Google will be holding a big hardware launch event tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Yes, the live stream will be available on CNET. What's going to be presented has largely been leaked out, though unconfirmed. The biggest device from the show should be the Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL. Notably, they don't get rid of the top and bottom bezels like the Samsung Galaxy S8 and iPhone X do. So, Scott, what are your thoughts on the design of this thing?
It looks fine. I mean, I love the build quality of the original Pixel, but again, it had a large bezel on that phone. But a lot of people care about camera quality. Pixel still has great camera quality. The question here is, to me, do the 2 and the 2XL take big strides in camera quality in an already pretty competitive landscape?
And it doesn't look like they're going to include, even in the XL version, 2 cameras on the back. Do you think that could actually hamper them or hurt them in any way?
I think it could hamper. I think that people are getting more used to the dual cameras and what they can do. There is the simulated bokeh effect that the Pixel did, which was not fantastic, but
which was mostly software.
It was mostly software, but that's kind of fits where Google wants to go, which is I think a lot of these are about computational things you can do software-wise, hardware-wise that are not in the physical camera. So maybe they talk about that. I think the general reaction when you sort of see it is like, oh, that's it. But that's the case with a lot of phones now. Is like, oh, okay, it's a phone.
Well, not only that, but like think about the iPhone X, where it's supposed to be $1,000, and there were a lot of folks that were trashing the design with like the notch up top. A lot of people felt like that was ugly or that was unattractive.
Well, and at least that looked a little more distinctive. Here, I mean, I guess you're looking at like HTC and LG being the ones making these. So you're probably going to expect a phone that falls in line with HTC and LG's recent phones. And they are making really good hardware, especially cameras. So that's good news. There's rumors about the reports of the squeezable sides, the HTC U11
I'm curious to see how that works. That
Is
should
that
be pretty interesting.
Squeeze for assistance?
I don't know.
Like,
that's
usually, weird.
That's usually how I ask for assistance in places. I just give them a nice hug.
I mean, it's good for SOS or something. That'd be an interesting idea. Like when you're panicked, just squeeze and see what happens.
That is interesting. So another important new launch for Google should be the Home Mini smart speaker. It's expected to be $50 and go up against the Echo Dot.
Yeah.
There's also the Home Max, which is rumored, which should potentially go up against the brand new Echo Plus. What do you like this strategy that Google is essentially in many ways playing catch up to Amazon's variety of smart speakers?
Well, Google has the software and the AI down pat. I mean, their ability to assist is great. The question is, what is it going into? So are they going to compete on that hardware territory? Certainly making a smaller one would be great to go up against the Dot on the larger end.
Which is phenomenally successful as a big seller for Amazon. That's the big seller out of the entire Echo family.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And if you already have a lot of Android devices you're working in or anything that's using Google Assistant, then you could use it and get a lot out of it. The larger end one, between that and HomePod and other stuff, like, what is that premium market looking like? Are they trying to do this for music? Are they trying? We don't even know about HomePod or what that's going to do really beyond music.
That's the Apple device.
That's the Apple device.
That's expected to come out in December for $349.
Yeah,
so that
and
is definitely premium tier.
That one we can't even talk about the assistant elements yet because they haven't even been discussed. You know,
Right, and Siri has been a laggard in that area for sure.
Right. So, you're definitely looking at it. There's a huge landscape of Amazon products, and can Google make theirs make sense? Andrew Gebhardt had an interesting thought in his piece today. What if you built the something into their Wi-Fi mesh router?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that idea because the question is, how many little things are you going to buy? And my problem is that when the landscape splits like that and you can't work cross-platform, you want to set up one set of devices, and which one will it be? So,
right. And when will
I'm
Google
buying 5 of them?
And also, when will Google on the hardware side start to try to lap Amazon instead of just playing catch up? There are a lot of other things that we didn't get to in a 4-minute podcast, including the expected Pixelbook laptop, AR and VR news. But either way, if you want to read more about these stories, check them out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Scott Stein.
Thanks for listening.
I'm impressed. You crammed a lot into 4 minutes.
Oh, Scott
I was like, I could have done more.
Scott's a pro.
We can always do
We
more.
could have done longer.
I was
but
like, I
that's
didn't even
what
get to
the
AR
post-
VR.
That's what the post show is for. Well,
welcome
let's
to
talk
AR
about
VR
it.
time.
Let's talk about it now because you're, a local expert on the subject.
Yeah, that's
so
like-
what are you hoping to see there?
If we had more time, I would have said that I'm most passionate about hearing about this. But what I'm hoping for, so let's talk about AR and VR. I was at Google I/O, and so it's hard now because they make a lot of announcements there, but they increasingly don't show stuff. And they used to show stuff at I/O. I've been like 4 or 5 times to I/O. And it used to be they would debut things. And now it's like, here's an announcement. We'll talk to you later. And so now, when are they going to talk to us later? Like Google Lens, really cool.
People were very excited about
Yeah, but like when are we going to hear about that? So similarly with VR, they made a lot of claims at the last I/O, and we still haven't seen the other shoe drop with those yet. One of them is that they're going to have these standalone, this is outside of phones, these standalone VR headsets that are going to be able to map the world around you using cameras, not as advanced as Google Tango, but based on Tango technology. So the idea is you wander around kind of like an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift. You could,
And it maps the room you're in.
it can map a little bit of your motion, not the entire room, but it means that if you've worn mobile VR headsets, so you got one of those sometimes often free Gear VRs or Daydream, you can't lean forward. It doesn't do that. You can only turn your head around. If you lean forward, everything stays in place and you get dizzy. So to be able to lean forward, it's called 6 degrees of freedom, which is basically what Apple and Google are now doing with their AR, where you can move around and look at things in the environment and see depth. That is a combination of the cameras and the motion tracking chips inside, the accelerometer and gyro working together, sometimes with other sensors. So basically, the long story short, it means you'll be able to duck your head in VR and duck under the virtual table.
It'll be more immersive, basically.
Yeah, more immersive.
I mean, like, nobody likes the idea of, being taken out of the moment in VR when all you're doing is pitching your head forward.
Right.
I didn't realize that. And that's obviously a major oversight in the world of VR as it stands right now. If that's something that people do like so normally, and you can't do it.
It means that like the holodeck part is gone. Like it's for mobile VR, it means like 360 videos are fine. But if you're going to do anything like I'm going through a haunted house, or I'm like exploring a virtual bedroom
where you're moving around as opposed to the world coming to you, and you're static.
Yeah, it means you basically have to start clicking around with your controller to move versus leaning forward and stuff. So anyway, they have these separate headsets, which they haven't really talked about much, and it's going to be HTC and Lenovo who are making those as these unknown priced entities. But then on the other side of it, we're expecting that Google will have more developments for Daydream VR, for the Pixel and for other Android phones. At the same time, they have something that's a lot like Apple's AR kit, the stuff that does all like IKEA on the subway, which became a tweet, and then stuff like that. They're going to have a similar set of software called AR Core that they've talked about, but they haven't launched yet in any major way. But it'll work on their phones and Samsung's phones for now.
Big picture here, who is the furthest ahead when it comes to AR and VR? Is it like kind of a scrum between Apple and Google? Is it the major VR headset makers like Oculus? Like, who do you see as like really innovating and pushing things forward in that market?
Well, for VR, it's definitely I would put Oculus at the leader of the pack, and also Vive. I think Oculus,
which is from HTC.
From HTC, though HTC has been in a strange situation, I think, now with Vive. Oculus being part of Facebook, I think there's a lot stronger push for VR software, and so that's the area that's pretty interesting to me. I think they always seem like kind of a leader of the pack. Also, they're in mobile with Samsung, so it's a really strong collection of lots and lots of apps. AR, it's funny because it depends on how advanced you want to talk. Like HoloLens, I mean, Microsoft has been exploring things doing this, but I think they've lost ground. They're looking at the vanguard, but they're losing ground because right now, in the things you can do without buying a developer kit, Apple swooped in and did a lot with ARKit, where now all of a sudden you could have your existing iPhone and play around with stuff and develop apps for people who could download them.
And is a little bit more. It's obviously much more relatable and consumable than getting a giant AR headset that you put on your
HoloLens.
Head.
Yeah. So there's that, and Google, I think, has been doing Tango for well before Apple. But the problem is it was only on 2 phones. So now they've been doing tremendous groundwork, but they have to catch up and actually get that stuff shared out too with people. But it is novelty landscape right now.
So, all right, let's get to the questions.
We have a lot of really great questions, but I'm going to be selfish for a second. Because I'm sitting in the chair. First and foremost, you mentioned the holodeck trivia for CNET diehards. That is the code name for this studio because pandering. But my question is, how do you think Google is going to approach exclusivity as someone who's very interested in the Pixel but is locked into an AT&T contract? Am I screwed?
Oh, boy. Well, what were those rumors at first about being Verizon exclusive? I don't know if that's still the case or not. I hope that...
Well, you can get it unlocked.
You can get it unlocked.
You can get it unlocked. That's
obviously you can always do that, but it'd be nice if I could actually just make a clean sweep.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you just pick it up and it'll be fine and you won't... I mean, carriers... are strange. The first Pixel, I think that was a strange story with it, where you were like, "Oh, it's showing up at Verizon stores," and you're like, "Why can't you just get it everywhere? Why wasn't it just available? Across the board?"
Well, at that point, I think it was an experiment. Verizon probably came in and said, "Hey, we're the big dog in town. Why don't you bring it to us exclusively, and we'll help you out?" Generally, those are why those deals end up working out. I think consumers tend to be a little bit annoyed about it, but it does reduce the level of risk for a company like Google in coming out with a brand new flagship. It would be nice if they expanded it out from a Verizon exclusive, but at the same time, it was kind of a leaky exclusive to begin with. You could get it from a variety of other websites, just unlocked.
Sure, absolutely, as any solution would be. But I was just kind of curious if there was going to be a cleaner way for me to make that jump and not spend several $100 extra.
Yeah,
because
that's a good question. It's a very good question.
We'll see, and I'm sure a lot of people watching will definitely be curious to see what sort of carrier structure we're going to see tomorrow.
Google innovates again. No carriers ever again.
Right.
Carriers are gone. Carriers are old news.
Carriers go the way.
Carriers go the way of the headphone jack. Which, who cares about the headphone? Who cares about the camera? I heard there's no headphone jack. Why? Says Richard Rudder, echoed by James Favor, asking if they're going to have a 3.5 millimeter jack.
Very good question.
All reports say no headphone jack.
Seriously?
Which is super annoying.
So, Droid Life had a lot of the early leaks of the Google Pixel 2 when, what was this? First came out September 20th. So about 2 weeks ago, I checked in with the guy who initially published the stories and was like, what about the headphone jack? Because really he only had pictures of the back of the phone. He didn't even have the screen. And he said, I don't know, because those were the leaks that he ended up getting. But it looks like now we're getting a little bit more information that they are going to get rid of the headphone jack, which would mean that it's probably USB Type-C.
Okay, so wait. So Apple said it was because of courage. Is everyone else doing it now just because it's cool?
They're all
I mean, like Samsung.
So many courageous companies.
Samsung stuck with it.
That's because Samsung's hipster and they want to be like the anti-cool.
They want to show them cooler. They want to show you that it can be done.
Cool or not cool? It's just useful.
Because it's one of the largest collective whys.
I hate that phones don't have headphone jacks. However, Like if a phone was coming out that I really liked and it didn't have a headphone jack, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm never getting that phone because it's missing the headphone jack.
Well,
It would
wait
be
a
something.
minute. But you've lived in that world for at least a year now.
It's tremendously
Don't you have an
annoying.
iPhone 7?
Yeah, it's tremendously annoying.
Yeah.
You forget the dongle, or you bring multiple headphones on planes because now you've got a Lightning one, and then I brought a Switch, and I don't have a 3.5 millimeter headphone because I only took that one.
Again.
And then the batteries
Again,
die in
You got the
headphone.
Bluetooth headphones, and you're in the plane, and there's no. It's like a
Again,
it's like an
first
old
world
Seinfeld
problems.
episode.
I would like to reference.
It is such a first world. It is so. This is
Ben,
so
Ben,
first world.
For the record, this entire show could be called First World Problem.
Which we have mentioned many
We
times
should actually
before.
rebrand because we never land at 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
But the general move away from headphone jacks is really obnoxious, and I don't like it on anything. But I'm just going to get back to the point. Like, I feel like phones, you don't own a phone forever, right? You have a phone for like
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3
for
years.
a lot of people.
Maybe you get to like 5, but like it's not like a laptop where you just can't make it that many more years on phones. They don't last.
It's very heavy use.
So
you carry them around with you.
I don't know. I think of it as like it's a multi-year experiment if you go without one. If you're willing to do that, sometimes I would go, well, if there was a phone I like, if it was a Pixel 2 and I go, that camera's great, I would go,
This is a
I'll
little.
put up with it.
This is a little disappointing though, because I was
But it's
honestly,
annoying.
I was personally looking at the Pixel 2, thinking, you know what, they're not so aggressive on design as the S8 with the edges, and
Right.
also the Note 8. For somebody that's looking to upgrade, like I have an iPhone 6, and buying an iPhone 8 made almost no sense in the world to me. Like, why would I spend that much money on a phone that was like very, very similar with a lot of like just an upgrade on internal components?
Definitely.
To me, the Pixel 2 looks like a very good option, but to suggest that they're going to get rid of the headphone jack does give me personally a little bit of hesitation in purchasing it, because that means like I have a bunch of headphones in my house that now aren't going to be useful.
I spend my life dealing with cables, your cables around
Mm-hmm.
here to make this stuff run, and I hate cables, and I want my life to be wireless. But the headphone jack was the last thing I wanted to go because
Right.
it's been perfect technology for how many decades?
And it's been one of the only universal inputs for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that that's now shifting, because obviously the technology world has to change. Like, the decision is made at some point that, like, you know what, we're all using this. Let's move on from it. It's not good enough.
Right. We're not there yet. USB-C is still a bit of a weird entity, even though it's showing up everywhere, but not everywhere. It's showing up a lot of places.
So then let's talk about if it's going to have Bluetooth 5.0 or not.
It should.
I would assume so. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. It's at this point
Definitely.
in the year.
Bizarre.
I think the iPhone has it.
yeah, it'd be bizarre not to
Right.
have it.
So
Sure.
the expectation would be, just to keep up with the Joneses, they're going to have Bluetooth 5.0 as well.
All right, back into some questions.
The
We're
camera
gonna-
is the thing for me, I would say. Again, it's like, how good is that camera?
The camera's a thing for a lot of people.
And the Pixel did have very good camera.
That's what I remember from the Pixels. Like, if there's one thing I remember about last year's Pixel, is how good the camera was, and low light. And that's basically what defined it. And so now I almost think of that as more of the defining opportunity here. It's like, can the Pixel 2 make as great a splash with the camera?
It's gotten so much more competitive too. I mean, like, Apple really touts the cameras. Obviously, Samsung does too. I'll be very curious to see how Google tries to differentiate in that field.
Speaking of splash, let's segue into Kurt's question. Is it going to be waterproof?
Should be.
So that was a big problem with the Pixel last year, right?
Yeah.
Was that it wasn't waterproof.
It's supposed to be, and it better damn well be if it doesn't have a headphone jack. I mean, I will throw something.
By the way,
I think
am
everyone
livid.
should.
I am
yeah.
livid right
First
now
world
about the
problems.
headphone jack.
First world problems.
I was unaware going
Well,
into this podcast that we were going to lose the headphone jack. This
Let's
is
just have these
horrible news.
gadgets be easier for us. Like, exactly. It's like, just stop complicating things in our lives with these little tiny annoyances. But I think that, sure, it should have water resistance and, to be able to take immersion. So
I think if Google paid any attention at all to the criticisms about their Pixel, they absolutely should have some level of water resistance, because that was something that was definitely lacking in their flagship phone last year. And I think it still sold reasonably well. I don't know what the numbers were, but it obviously wasn't an utter failure like the Fire phone. So there's good reason for them to keep going with it.
that being said, don't go swimming with your phones.
Right.
Don't.
You shouldn't be aiming for that in life in
Right.
general.
That's the hardest thing with reviewing like phones versus
Not
like,
swimming?
watch. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a swimmer, first of all. Big surprise. But the phones versus watches is just, the age-old water resistance reminder. It's like you can immerse some phones up to 30 minutes, but they're not designed to be doing that all the time.
At this point,
can
I'd like
with a
to
watch.
suggest.
What are you going to
50
do with
meter-
it underwater anyways?
I'm gonna
When people
go
start
out
doing
on a
like
limb.
underwater scuba diving photos and videos, and people taking it with them all the time in showers and other stuff. It's just like, don't do that with $1,000 phone or $800 phone.
Also, in the native sense, like
would
the
you
way
do
the
that?
phone is designed, using the best thing you can do underwater is probably take a picture, right? That camera's going to get warped by the lack of light underwater and the way that the color spectrum gets skewed. So you're going to want hardware to add on to that anyways to get the best quality picture. Otherwise, what the hell would you do with a phone underwater?
It's just nice for occasional toilet drops.
Look, yes,
Insurance.
absolutely. But I would argue too that you don't really need your phone with you all the time if you're going out on a swim. Like,
Right.
leave your phone sometimes. Like that's okay. You don't need to catalog.
You might as well
everything.
ask some of
No,
these
it's
people
good.
to cut their own hands off.
I know.
That's
I
good
know.
it's good if you're at the beach and then you're wearing your cargo shorts and then like the water rides up and then your shorts are wet and you're like, I have my phone in my pants.
Right.
Which happened to me once, or
Yeah.
might happen to
I-
other people.
I know you wear cargo shorts.
All right,
I
are
do
written
wear
all over your
yeah,
face.
I'm
We're-
super cargo short.
We're running low on time. Let's slam through a couple of ones as quickly as we can. I'd just like the comment from Drew Nielsen who says Danny Tanner would love a huggable phone.
Definitely.
I hope it makes
so-
a noise when you squeeze it, like a lot. Hey, Pixel 2!
I was thinking that too. That would make like a little yippee.
Oh, now Pillsbury's suing us.
Double stuff.
That's right.
You do like a little-
It is the Pillsbury noise.
All
I
right.
don't like Oreo as an Android name, by the way.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I know this is
No,
like
no,
total
this is-
forum.
this is for-
total
this
bunch
is
of stupid
first world
comments.
problems
IDGAF.
First world
conversation.
problems. Can we just call it Android 7 or whatever? I don't want like these candy
Call
names.
it whatever you
Numbers.
want. We've been calling it the iPhone X. a
Android
lot.
8.
I'm
whatever.
never stopping calling it the iPhone X.
Android 9. Yeah, it's gonna be X.
Okay, Michael Brown, shout out Michael Brown.
Hey, Michael.
I would be blown away if Google announced iMessage feature in the Google Allo tomorrow.
I don't know why that would happen though.
You mean like
Like the
another
Apple
proprietary,
integration.
like a
No, I think
like integrating iMessage,
Good.
that's
yes,
what
yeah.
that's.
like
that is-
actual iMessage.
I don't
believe
think
so.
it's ever gonna happen.
No, that's
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
That is
Unfortunately.
a great way.
That's like a Sega Genesis playing a Nintendo game.
Right. Maybe somewhere down the line, but
Apple has
Apple would
no
have
reason to do that. At this
Apple
point.
would have discussed that at WWDC or something if they're gonna.
But why would they
need to-
do it? But why? There would be very little reason for them to do it. This is another element of Apple's walled garden where
Ugh.
if at any point you decide to break free from Apple prison, they make iMessage this thing where you don't get texts from your mom for like 3 weeks or something.
Say
until they
goodbye to
start
your
showing
friends
up.
and family.
Right, but like for this short period of time,
Yeah.
like while you're running from the Apple Island. So no, I don't think you're going to get iMessage.
No,
iMessage,
don't.
Michael. But I
That's
do
the
think it's a
longest
great
of
idea.
longest of long shots. But yeah, in a dream world,
Sure.
Okay,
I want that.
real quick, USB-C charger, was that going to equal fast charge?
I don't know.
It
What
could.
do you think?
It
Yeah.
could.
I mean, obviously, the
Um,
smart thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, totally on the table. Like, that's something I would also expect at this point because so many other good phones. I mean, reviewing Motorola's phones this year and things like that. I'm used to seeing good fast charge
Yeah.
showing up. The iPhone included if you have to buy all these extra adapters in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
Not in box, but fast charge capable, sure. Again, I hate to use the words table stakes, but
that
because I hate that phrase, but I
But
do
it's
feel
true.
like table stakes is
It
what
is
comes
true.
to mind.
That and also the water resistance. I think
Yeah, and
are
water
just
resistance.
are just expected at this point.
Michael Brown wants us to brainstorm for a hot second. What do you guys think Google and the Made for Google need to do to get Pixel as popular as the iPhone? And let's go ahead and bundle that together with Nasser's follow-up. Do we like the Pixel's design? Because he thinks that there could be some improvements.
Oh, the original one?
I'm assuming
I'm
we're still
assuming
talking
Pixel
about the 2.
Yeah, because
Pixel 2.
that's the new one. I definitely
Because
agree that it could
we
use
know
some.
that 1 got lots of criticism.
I
Look,
mean, the design picture's fine. Look now,
it looks
fine.
fine, but like
Inoffensive.
it's I would say that like Google does not have factories. Google is not the one originating these phones. They provide the specs and blueprints to somebody else, whether it's HTC or somebody else, as they've created a better partnership with some HTC engineers, maybe they're going to be able to create better designs in the future, but at the same time, they don't have the same power over design as Samsung does or Apple does. So I don't think that it's as, design forward as it could be, but I don't think that it's offensive either.
I mean, in the original Pixel, everybody thought the bezels looked huge. It looked very like, saying, oh, it looked like the iPhone's bezels or everything else. So I don't think that was like a major design win either, but it felt nice. It was nicely made. I always think of Google's hardware products, even going back to Chromebooks and things. Every once in a while when they debut a product that was made by them, I always think of it more as like a good utilitarian, very cleanly designed product. Yeah. And as long as it has that, I like that. I hope the Pixel 2 feels really super clean, and that's like the clean Android.
Well, that's why they should have the headphone jack. You remember they were actually trumpeting the headphone jack. And when you talk about a utilitarian design and something that's just easily usable by most people, they were like, we still kept the headphone jack last year. Well,
I don't want it to be
traitors.
I don't want it to be over designed. Sometimes I feel like some phones definitely plunge into that. Samsung, with the first curved edges, or like the second display with LG's phones and things. I would much prefer a very clean, functional phone that just felt like it was really well made. You pick it up and you're like, oh, that's nice. I will use that all the time.
So going back to Michael's question about what would make the Pixel as popular as the iPhone, I don't know exactly what that killer feature would actually be. However, I think that the field has been more opened this year than in the past, because the iPhone 8 is kind of a punt. They didn't really do much with it. Yeah. And the iPhone 10 is so expensive. Whatever. iPhone X.
X10.
Is so expensive that I think it really pushes a lot of potential consumers out of that market. So that gives the opportunity for Samsung or Google or even LG, some of the other folks, to come out with something. Is the Pixel 2 going to be that? I don't know. But Google is also big on software. So we'll be very interested to see not only what the hardware looks like, but also what this phone is capable of, because that's a big strong suit for Google.
I also think the Pixel, maybe I'm just working in tech too much, but I feel like it made a lot of strides for getting in people's minds. The Nexus always seemed like a phone you had to be sort of into that club to be, sort of
totally.
like I want the Nexus phone. But now I feel like Pixel crossed over into branding for an average person, for someone who just wants a good phone. And now if they continue that, just continuing to make good strides with that versus suddenly dominating, I think is a very good place for them to be right now. You keep wedging in there. Yeah, you keep wedging in there, and then before you know it, maybe one of the top players in the phone market.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, you say a nice, clean, under-designed, not over-designed phone, but I don't care. I won't mind to come pre-bedazzled. We're at the end of the show, but we want to make a quick mention. Nubs Media tweeted at us, and he had a great question about the Wall Street Journal story. Ben, you want to elaborate on this?
Yeah, so there's a Wall Street Journal story that I think came out yesterday that talked about the fact that Samsung is going to make some good money off of the iPhone X, because they're providing the OLED displays on those. So we were talking about this a little bit ahead of the show, and just the fact is that Samsung, because they're providing those displays on the top-tier iPhone, means that there's no way Samsung loses. If the iPhone X does well, Samsung kind of wins. Yeah. If people buy Samsung phones instead, Samsung wins. So they figured out a pretty brilliant strategy.
Well, and it's kind of like when people talk about Samsung versus other companies, the reality, that's in the marketing and the ad campaigns. But in reality, as a company that makes tons of components and is doing all sorts of worldwide business, that's not the case.
It's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, they spread the bets around the roulette table, and they're going to do fine. And that's what they are. They're a massive electronics company. So it's smart. Is that, I'm sure Samsung would like to sell its own phones and still do fantastically with that. But to be able to make these panels, these OLED panels that are going to show up all over the place, that's a huge part.
And to have Apple beholden to their OLED panels is also a very powerful position for Samsung to be in. I mean, until Apple finds another supplier, which could potentially be LG at some point, Samsung has some very nice leverage on them, which could be interestingly used sometime in the future.
Right. And the need for these types of panels is not going to dissipate because there's going to be all sorts of products, not just phones, down the road. That I think it's an interesting landscape
Yeah,
to be looking
definitely. But yeah,
like
Nubs,
VR headsets.
Nubs, thank you very much for referencing that story. And
As always,
thank you very much for tweeting at us. So
and for everybody for joining us today, we are out of time. We are overtime.
we are over time, but
but we
Scott,
don't get paid for it.
This has been a pleasure.
just like that
Thank
Jets
you very
game.
much. Yeah,
Thank you.
just like the OT Jets game, which, by the way, I think you guys won. So congratulations.
Yeah.
So did the Bills.
Yeah, they did. Bills are much more impressive.
So did the Eagles.
Oh yeah,
we're all winners.
Also much more impressive.
We're all winners today.
at
Okay, so the 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, and of course, CNET.com. Hopefully, we'll see you guys again tomorrow, probably after the Pixel event. But check it out.
Oh, that's a good point. We're
Yeah.
not going to be on at our regular time tomorrow, are we?
We'll figure it out, and we'll tweet about when we'll actually do the show.
All right, so
But
I
anyway,
apologize to everybody. I just told we'd be back on tomorrow at 11 in the chat.
We'll be eating pizza and watching Pixel.
We'll figure it out. But anyway, thanks everybody for joining today, and yeah, we'll see you again soon.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks.